On the right, goons are coming. The left goes right. Look, corporate media crossing against the light. It's K2 and KGW Channel 8 are both committing disorderly conduct and improper position on a highway. The time and date is as indicated on the video right there to the bottom of the video screen. I remember fighting the pigs over this park. You got the cop scanner? Yeah. You know where they at? It works. Oh, my snacks.
Yeah, where's the snack block at?
Yeah, where's snack block? Snack block.
They're handing out hell of beef jerky.
That's a beautiful mask. Hey.
No, there's like...
left to fight over the scraps of less than 5% of the wealth, but 1 or 2% controls the rest. We live in a world where people can get mega rich and pay their workers less than it takes to live, effectively placing their businesses on welfare. We live in a world where children starve and boys can rape. Simple education can prevent this. We live in a country where 1 in 5 children are below the poverty line. We live in a country where a transgender person can be murdered for becoming too intimate without disclosing their condition. We live in a country where the environment is not a factor in business or social legislature. We live in a world where we have to think about the motive of even the people sworn to protect us. We live in a country where peace officers have no obligation but to enforce the laws whether they are just or not. We live in a country where the value of somebody's life is based only on their accomplishments, yet healthcare is not regarded as a human right. We live in a country where over half of our spending is allocated to literally tear down governments that are no better than ours, to install slavery in foreign countries like Puerto Rico, who are taxed without representation. We live in a country where the man who criticized difficult strategic operations can have troops killed with air support available and ready. We live in a country where legal proceedings can be used to undermine and cancel democracy and create a de facto fascist system. We live in a country where the leader of the EPA does not believe in climate change. We live in a country where the leader of the educational system didn't know that students have to buy their own pencils. We live in a country where the vice president was on the record advocating for electroconvulsive shock therapy of members of diverse genders and sexualities.
Fuck that shit!
We live in a country where the president tries repeatedly to install xenophobic laws. We live in a country where illegal immigrants are criticized, yet those who do so actively take away legal measures to allow practical integration. When we protest this forced collective suicide, we are called terrorists. If I am telling you something that terrifies you, imagine living in a world as a psychological abuse victim.
True.
I am a trans woman. My treatment is based on 40-year-old standards that require me to be checked for psychological health at every step of transition.
Fuck
The
that
federal
shit.
government
Fuck that shit.
would crumble underneath these standards. I stand for the basic income in the face of automation. Not a model where we are fighting each other to stay afloat, and not a regression to even more destructive markets than we have today. With the amount of money we spend on imperialism, we could literally end world hunger. For all that we throw away for cosmetic reasons in the markets, we could make food free for all.
Free!
With all of our manicured lawns. With all of our manicured lawns, we could contract professionals to grow food closer to our families. We have options, and we don't have to compromise our comfort. On the contrary, we could accomplish more for less with more community-based mindset. We as a society must stop considering ourselves separate from nature. We are nature and she is angry at us. Just ask Coco the gorilla, who studied her whole life to tell us that she was upset with our decisions. I stand for the liberation of indigenous people from the blatantly erasive measures of our educational system. I stand for the liberation of people of color from working more for less and having their cultures co-opted by famous white people in Hollywood. I stand for the empowerment of women and the rights of all variant genders and sexualities. I stand for equality and education for all. I believe in the unity of many voices speaking their truth, for collaboration is the cornerstone of democracy. I don't want to lead, I want to educate. Apologists will tell you that they have the right to speak their mind, and I disagree because we are only marginally at best differing from the system that commits these civil rights crimes. They often retreat to the same logical fallacies that prove they are not listening. I will not be silenced until every man, woman, trans person, and child has food and shelter and education. Even if I have to navigate the system myself. I do not want to plunge the people of this world into darkness. And I do not want to fight, but the government must be corrected or dissolved. And without its cooperation, I must call for the larger power or risk creating a power vacuum. The United Nations has finally criticized us for our treatment of Puerto Rico. Donald Trump has committed genocide.
Fuck Trump!
Once with the Muslim ban and cohort with drone strikes like none we've seen before. Twice for refusing to help Puerto Rico while helping Texas and Florida readily. And more are likely to come to light because of his business interests. We are clearly supported by a fascist regime in Russia, and that is why I stand for the dissolution of the federal government on the condition that we draft an agreement with the United Nations to protect human rights in a transitionary period. I ask the American Civil Liberties Union to help in this endeavor and offer me, if needed, to advocate. I will identify myself to an official from the United Nations or from the American Civil Liberties Union.